Mike, they are really moving at free speech. And with free speech being attacked this boldly, it always follows with serious, hardcore oppression. And I don't think the yuppies and people realize they're the real target of shutting me and others down. Mike Rivero.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. When you see a government clearly moving against freedom of expression and basically taking the point of view that anybody that doesn't agree 100% with the government's point of view is now an extremist, and we've had other members of the U.S. government saying that anybody who engages in this kind of dissent ought to lose their citizenship rights. And then you have the excuse that torture is okay on non-citizens. You can see the link up being created to try and sell the idea that it's not only okay for the U.S. government to be torturing captured al-Qaeda or Iraqi taxi drivers, but certain members within the United States itself are now open to being targeted and harassed.
That's what the Military Commissions Act says. It says we strip a U.S. citizen of their citizenship, the president or any of his designates, then you secretly can be tortured, tried, and executed. That's in there.
And it's very much what the Nazis used to do. In fact, I think one of the biggest psychic shocks Americans are having to deal with is we're waking up and realizing that the torture scandal isn't just now. It's been going on all along. And we are this century's version of the Nazis. During the last century, it was Germany, Italy, and Japan. This century, it's the United States, Israel, Britain, and Australia that are the bad guys. And people are having a hard time adjusting to that.
Well, I mean, all governments are corrupt and wicked on average in history, but clearly the Anglo-American establishment is openly saying, you say global warming isn't real, we're going to arrest you. You have any free speech, we're going to arrest you. And banning travel, this ties in, the key point I didn't make, is into national ID cards and control and tracking. When I went to Canada, they held me and said, we're sending you back, or we may put you in a Canadian prison. You criticize the Bilderberg Group, that's illegal. I mean, they told me. The good old folks at New Silver Solution. And the website is supernaturalsilver.com. Supernaturalsilver.com. This is something that kills bacteria, viruses, you name it, well documented. They've got it down to a super small nano-sized particle. Supernaturalsilver.com. Check them out at Infowars.com. Supernaturalsilver.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot explain to you how classical and hardcore and serious this tyranny is. I mean, they're openly coming out and saying in Canada, if you criticize the war, you're not allowed here, to come into the country. If you criticize what's happening in Palestine, you're not allowed here. And then on the other side of the coin, they're saying if you criticize open borders, you're not allowed in Canada or England or Europe. This is what the Commissars did in Russia. This is what the Nazis did in Germany. You don't agree with the party, you aren't allowed to travel, aren't allowed to have a job. And they admit that's what the national ID card's for. That's what the no-fly list with over 1,100,000 people. That's right, 1.1 million and growing. They admit that's going to be a no-work list. If you're not in good favor with the government on your taxes, they're announcing it from Australia to the U.S., you won't be able to have a job. And they'll prosecute your employers, but then give waivers to the illegal aliens. It's like there's a waiver for them to get stimulus money, the $787 billion, but citizens have to show ID. I mean, Mike Rivero, they are going into mega high gear, and I see nowhere worse than England. I mean, it is literally becoming 1984. They had the head of MI5, as you know, quit last month saying, we're turning into 1984. This is a police state. It turns out the government spies on Parliament, the real government. They're arresting members of Parliament that leak out info about corruption and SWAT teaming them. I mean, there's just too many things for me to report, Mike. There's too much happening too fast. Right now, they are hitting us at every angle.
Well, you're absolutely correct. We're seeing exactly the same thing about Jane Harman in Congress. Nobody's going to investigate her. Nobody's going to fire her. Nobody's going to impeach her. But they're trying to go after the people who leaked the story of her obstruction of justice in an espionage case. They're trying to make those people the criminal. As far as moving very fast, yes, they are. And they're moving so fast, they're becoming very obvious to people. I think there is an element of panic going on. The reason they're moving fast is they realize their window of opportunity may be closing on creating this new global empire. Because as the economy continues to deteriorate, more and more people realize that globalism is the cause of the economic downturn. And they're not going to accept globalism as a fix for it anytime soon. And certainly the egregious attacks on freedom of speech are getting completely out of control. I got a document earlier today, posted up at my website. It is the new lexicon for extremism in the United States. It's an official U.S.
That.
Yeah, and it's
alternative media. It says anybody, tell them that has a different view in news is basically a terrorist. Go ahead.
Yeah, basically anybody not 100% in goose step with the government is an extremist, and everything is in there. I fit into probably about 12 of the groups in there. You probably fit into a bunch of them there. It is almost impossible to not be considered an extremist going through this list of definitions that they have in there. And what this is the device to criminalize the entire population to then justify anything the government cares to do to them. We can arrest you because you're an extremist. We can do this because you're an extremist. We can shut down your computers. We can break into your home. We can do all of this stuff because you're an extremist and you're not doing what we, the government, say you should be doing for your own good.
And they try in these documents, they'll have extremists right next to cop killers. They'll go every page to condition the cops. This guy killed a cop. And then they'll next say, Ron Paul, people, returning vets. It's guilt by association. And again, they're so bold in what they're doing. I mean, I'm speechless, Mike Rivero of WhatReallyHappened.com. Can you comment on the Home Secretary in England saying we're publicly shaming you, and if you don't comply, that's a quote with what our view is, you will be arrested in England and you will be banned from coming into our country? I mean, this is folks, this is the gauntlet being thrown down where they say you're not allowed to have free speech.
Yeah, it's absolute totalitarianism, and for years we've had this whole political correctness doctrine in the United States, which had sort of the implied idea that you're allowed to have freedom of speech only so long as you don't say anything we don't agree with, which of course is not what the Founding Fathers intended. And we're seeing it here in the United States. Free speech is now only allowed in free speech zones. We're not allowed to express our opinion out in public where anybody might see it. You're right, they're trying to find some way they can shut down the blogs and the alternative media, and they are moving very, very rapidly. But again, there's this old little piece of wisdom floating around the net that the fastest way to bring down a dictator is to force him to act like one where everybody can see it. And we're kind of getting into that. And I think right now, I mean, just going around my everyday life, talking to people at the supermarket and the post office and everything, when you talk to them, they all know what's going on, and they're all getting angry.
Think about what dirtbags they are all over the world, but now in the West saying you don't have free speech. I mean, they're coming right out with it. It's just, folks, this is tyranny. This is corruption. This is despots. This is the death of liberty, and it always accompanies having your pension funds taken, having your nation bankrupted. And it's because they know that if we get politically active and take the nation back, we're going to arrest all these bankers. Mike, they're going for broke, aren't they? I mean, I'm going to talk about that when we come back.
Yes.
1-800-259-9231. Calls coming up, 1-800-259-9231. Our YouTube channel, 1 million views a week and growing, totally shut down, completely blown away. No First Amendment. Home game. And that's spelled HOMEGAIN.com. HOMEGAIN.com. You can go there for free, find out how much your house is worth, how much it's listed for. They've been around for 10 years. I'd used this service before I even got them as a sponsor when we were moving a few years ago. And they have a home sale maximizer that tells you the least expensive repairs to do to your home or upgrades that'll give you the best resale value. Just an amazing site, HOMEGAIN.com, homegain.com. That's HOMEGAIN.com. Or click on the Infowars.com banner. It's Max, the little orange gorilla. Or is this the beginning of the end of the tyrants? I mean, how much more humiliation do we have to take? All over the country, cops will run up and even arrest mainstream news reporters videotaping their activities. They cram cameras down our throats, but I've seen reports, hundreds of them, where they arrest people who film the police saying it's illegal to film them. I mean, they always lose in court, but they don't care. The government is out of control. It's totally bankrupted us. It's totally raping us. Your phone calls for Mike Rivero coming up. I got a bunch of other news as well. They're really trying to hype up stuff for a war with Iran right now. Wired magazine reporting Iran launches airstrikes on Iraqi villages. And then they show a Cobra helicopter and claim that's an Iranian one. Who knows? This is really getting crazy. WHO was uncertain about declaring flu pandemic. Got a bunch of news on those fronts and your calls. Before we go back to Mike Rivero, whatreallyhappened.com, I want to just remind you that they may have whacked us on YouTube, but we can come back and fight through that. And later, I'm going to give you the toll-free numbers. Well, I had them here. I had a toll-free number for YouTube. I got to find it in my stack. I've got their non-toll-free number, too. I want you to call Google and YouTube and let them know. Because, if they banned us for some legitimate copyright thing or something, but it's still selectively enforced, if they like the channel, they just delete it. That'd be one thing. But saying I can't show news articles on the show when Google and YouTube have declared they own all the books on the planet and are digitizing them. That's amazing. Did you guys ever find that article, throw it up on screen? It was Google to digitize all books. But anyways, side issue. The point is, it's just asinine. Yeah, Google and research libraries launch a massive digitization project. These people are just out of their minds.